Hey, I'm here at the Canopy Growth headquarters with Jordan Sinclair, the VP of Communications. And Jordan, in 2015, I was standing at around this same place, but it looked a little different. Can you tell me what happened since it was an abandoned factory all the way to what we're looking at today?
Well, welcome back, first of all. So I mean, in 2015, this was just a derelict building. Like, this was an old chocolate shop. This was basically the exit of a tour where people would exit through the gift shop and leave, but it hadn't been used for about 5 years at that point, or 7 years actually in 2015. And it took us a while, but we've refurbished this into the Tweed Visitor Center. So this is now a place that brings tourists back to Smiths Falls, the little town that we're in, and it serves as an education platform for our brand, Tweed.
Yeah, and I've noticed you even have what amounts to a cannabis museum, you have a coffee shop, you have a gift shop. So like, take me back to when I was here, because you maybe had a quarter of this operational?
Yeah.
And when I saw that, you know, when you guys were called Tweed actually, I was blown away just by the operation you had to produce that marijuana. I had never seen that kind of cannabis operation. And then looking at it today, what is the square footage for the production and everything? Like, how much has that blown up?
We had about 6 grow rooms at that point in this facility, and we've gone to 47 grow rooms just here. Wow. But this has become a smaller part of our production story. And in that time, we've gone from 2 little facilities in Ontario to now we've got production in 7 provinces across Canada, and we're in 16 countries around the world. So it's been just, 4 years of explosive growth since 2015. Based largely on the fact that medical was a great market in Canada. The recreational market allowed us to raise a lot of capital, and then we used that capital to start to put ourselves into good positions in other markets where medical markets are emerging.
Well, I think you guys were a bit ahead of the curve with just the whole branding aspect, because with the Tweed brand, when you started, you had a brand in mind. Like, it's very slick, it's very memorable. Kind of the first mover advantage, like anticipating the recreational would be the thing.
Well, I would say you can look at it like that in hindsight, but really the genesis of the Tweed brand was more about embracing the fact that we weren't a pharmaceutical company. Like everybody back in 2014 was coming up with their medical cannabis brand. There was a lot of green crosses, there was a lot of meta, canna, those sorts of words, and everyone was trying to pretend that they were a pharmaceutical company. But doctors weren't treating us like one, regulators weren't treating us like one, patients had never been treated well by pharmaceutical companies, so we figured we would buck that trend. So Tweed felt like it was more approachable, it was an easy way to launch good customer service, to try and ease people into a tough conversation, and then that translated really well over to rec. But I think in the beginning it was actually a killer medical brand, because it allowed people to feel good when they were not feeling well. And what, the one gem in there was that filled a void in a lot of people's lives. Like they felt like they were part of something in the brand.
It was more comfortable and relatable than, like you were saying, some of these other brands. It was just like a little bit intimidating almost with the names you're talking about. So fast forward to the Constellation deal, because you guys were cruising along and clearly raising enough money to continue expanding. What did that Constellation move do for you guys to really take things to the next level?
I mean, it gave us a cash position that was unrivaled. There were raises that were happening around the industry, and every raise would be the biggest in history, because everybody would go to the bank and get 20, 30, 40 million. Then it started to hit into the hundreds of millions of dollars that were being raised. Constellation brought money to the table, but they also brought an incredible amount of credibility. When you've got a Fortune 500 company, and when you've got someone that understands consumers, especially American consumers, the way the Constellation does, I think it gave us a differentiator beyond just the cash. So we didn't get the 5 billion or the 4 billion US right away. We really had to try out for it. They injected about 190 million US dollars, so 245 Canadian million dollars.
Nothing to sneeze at.
No, it's a huge amount of cash. But what we had to do after that was, really open the kimono and show them how we work, show them the culture, show them, the goal, and they liked it, they loved it, and they came in for another 4 billion US, within a calendar year of the first investment.
Well, yeah, opening the kimono I think is huge, especially when you guys then listed on the New York Stock Exchange, which
Yeah.
is a massive deal. So I'm sure there's all sorts of regulatory hurdles to be able to do that. You can't just jump in and get uplisted like that. So you think that Constellation influx like kind of prepared you guys to do that?
It forced a really interesting question. So there was no way that the NYSE was going to allow a cannabis company on, according to them. And then our CFO at the time, Tim Saunders, asked one question. He said, listen, what if somebody that was listed on NYSE bought us? Would they have to leave? And it framed the conversation in a different way where they were like, oh, okay, like you guys are an acquisition target, or maybe a cannabis company could be an acquisition target someday. We need to think about this differently. And that was enough to get us over the hump, at least start an earnest conversation. And we were the first on the venture exchange in Canada, the first to uplist to the big board, the TSX. So I think it was just good momentum to be able to continue that list of firsts and be the first on NYSE.
Yeah, no, I mean, it obviously gets you, legitimizes the whole industry, like with the acquisition.
Yeah.
And I guess the institutional investing and stuff will come as well and continue to build like from there.
Yeah, so I mean, we still are a retail heavy stock at this point. So an institutional investment is a big goal. I think that would reduce the amount that the price per share could swing on any given day. Feels like institutional money reduces volatility. So that's, yeah, for sure that's a goal. There's a couple things that we have to do structurally to be able to get there. So we're working on, ESG scores and stuff like that, like the new sort of environmental and social and governance aspects that'll take us to the next level.
Speaking of next level and just kind of the U.S. market, you guys are digging into the hemp side of things based on the Farm Bill.
Big time.
I thought it was funny. We teamed up with Martha Stewart for CBD, pet food and that kind of thing. What are you doing on the hemp side, and how big of a part of the business do you see that being? Like, with CBDs being so big in the States right now.
It is big. So I mean, CBD is just 2 or 3% of the plant. There's so many other opportunities with hemp in the U.S. Our approach to it is to do what we already know how to do, which is extract cannabis plants, and hemp is just a cannabis plant. It's just got a different amount of active ingredients in it. Sure. So we're going to be really strong extractors, and then we can formulate that into different things. The acquisition of This Works will fit really nicely, not only in the US, but in other international jurisdictions, because they already know how to do great makeup. Now, if we can add CBD into that, we think we've got an actual offering that can compete head-to-head with anybody. But then in New York State, we've got this hemp industrial park concept. So we have a building already that's in the southern tier of the United States. It's roughly the same size as this, a slightly smaller than this building, around the same size plot of land. And we will operate extraction there, but we'll also sub-parcel it out to any other business that wants to come to do other things. So if you've got an innovative hemp-based plastic business or a t-shirt business or something else that could fit into our ecosystem, then we would invite those people into the hemp park, and we can create a little ecosystem of kind of hemp expertise in New York.
Oh, wow. All right, so first Canada, then the US, then the world.
So I think it's sort of like first Canada, then the world, then the US, because the US market's right there for so many things, but the federal legislation is only there for hemp. So we still have to wait a little bit on the THC side of things until we feel more comfortable with the risk profile. We've got the acreage deal, as I'm sure you know. They're a multi-state operator in the US. Mm-hmm. The vote will close on Monday at noon, and then we'll report the results a little bit later in the week. But if that passes, then basically we've got a turnkey solution to go into the States. So we've got a company that's got retail operations, production operations, distribution. They've got a whole team that's already set up in the US. And then once we can hit a triggering event where we're comfortable with the risk, then we've got US operations already, and we can drive the hemp track and the THC track kind of both in parallel, and then they can join once there's a triggering event.
Yep, sounds like you guys are hitting on all cylinders. So
yeah.
Well, I appreciate the time, and it's been a pleasure to watch it grow from an empty factory all the way to this.
Come back every year.
Don't mind if I do.
Okay.
All right, Jordan.
All right,
Much
thanks.
appreciated.